welcome to the Better Mind Center's YouTube channel. For those of you who are new here, the Better Mind Center is a group of mind-body oriented therapists and coaches helping clients recover from chronic pain, anxiety, and depression. We are so excited to be with you for our Troubleshooting Your Technique series. In this series, we're going to dive deeper into traditional mind-body recovery tools. We will share new perspectives and techniques for you to try during your recovery journey. My name is Bernice.
I'm Alexandra.
And today we are going to be talking about family time and how to cope.
What a timely topic, Bernice.
I'm so excited to be talking about this with you today.
Me too. This has been coming up, like I said, all summer for myself with clients. There's been a lot to navigate on the family front, friendship front, a lot of dynamics.
Yes, yeah, I definitely agree. I think summers is one of those times where it feels a bit more laxed. And then as soon as we get into the holiday season, it's almost like this anticipatory, obligatory time of like, oh, how Thanksgiving's coming up, Christmas, or whatever holiday that it is that we're celebrating that comes around. And then we're like, oh, we're going to see these people again. Or maybe it's, yay, we're going to see these people again.
Exactly. A lot to prepare for, think about. How are we relating to some of these dynamics?
Yeah, yeah. So I think one of the things that you and I both had seen and had talked about too with some of our clients that was coming up a lot was this nervousness, doubt of their emotional capacity to be around, whether it be one family member or a group of family members, and just, I know, just different personalities, how are we going to be okay with that? Or what's going to come up? And just that a lot of anticipatory and also the preparing for, like, am I going to be okay? And I think what came along with that too was this conversation of seeing clients share a lot of heightened sensations coming on because they're like, can I do this? Am I going to be able to? Or, just again, a lot of doubt around this particular topic.
And I think what you're speaking to is really around what folks are noticing, right? When we get back with family, when we get around people we've known for a long time, we fall back into these old patterns, routines, systems of being, and they can really sneak up on us. And maybe even without our acute or active knowledge, falling into the daughter, the older sibling, some of these roles that have long defined us and might be contributing to some of our symptoms. And knowing that we're approaching family time, to your point, for a day, for a weekend, for an extended period of time, can feel like a lot of pressure when we're in our healing journey. We're understanding things about ourselves. We're working to shift some patterns and ways of being, and then being pulled back into perhaps some dysfunction or people who haven't always upheld boundaries and ways of interacting with us that have felt meaningful and supportive.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're talking about just the role that we may fall into in a family setting. I think that everyone experiences that. Like, I experience that if I'm around my family and then all of a sudden it feels as though I'm a child to some extent. And I'm just like, no, I'm a full grown adult. I make decisions on my own. But there's something about being in the dynamic and potentially the way that I see my aunts engaging and stuff like that, that it makes me just feel like really taken care of to some extent, but also like a child where it's like, you need to be over here and we're going to be over here. And that's like, okay, separations of things.
Like, do I need to sit at the kid table still? No.
That's exactly. Yeah. But overall, I think there's a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves too of getting everything right or establishing a boundary and making sure that whatever it is that we're trying to make go smoothly, that we may enter in some bit of hiccups. And then we either feel like we completely lost it, or we feel like, oh, I just fell back into the same cycle again, or we're noticing that our body is talking a lot louder when we're engaged in these situations too. So, excuse me, being able to take care of ourselves in a way that feels best as well.
Yeah, it does feel like there's this pressure to predict and brace and prepare. that awful conversation, that person who makes those comments, like all of those things that we can sort of have learned to expect over the years of these interactions. And then when we, don't catch them or respond correctly in the moment, we end up beating ourselves up. I should have said this. I told myself I wouldn't let them rile me up about that. And then in addition to being in the situation, we have this inner dialogue that's continuing to reinforce that messed up, we did something wrong.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm in complete agreement to everything that you're sharing right now too, because I see that with so many of my clients. And so again, this kind of preparation that goes into where a lot of it is just that mental dialogue of, so if they say this, and this is how I can respond. If they do this, then I can do this. And it's like, obviously we don't know how it's actually going to play out, but all of this mental onness to some extent of just making sure that we have every game piece to move if something occurs in that moment where it's like we're really trying to be mindful of ourselves, but also take care of ourselves in that situation too, or any situation really.
And what I'm hearing you speak to in that is that we're trying to move the other person's chess pieces too.
Right.
And cycle where, well, if they just did this, or if they, refrained from doing that, or if so and so did this, it becomes all about what the other person is doing. And it feels like we lose our agency or sense of opportunity to respond in those moments, because if they just got their stuff together, I wouldn't be in this situation.
Mhm.
And we don't get to control where other people are in their journey, what role they're playing in the dysfunction to uphold that or not. And so I think to your point, if we're going to spend some time predicting, where do we get to really focus on ourselves and what's within our control, regardless of trying to play that chess game with, if they do this, I do this, back and forth. That's
Yeah.
exhausting, right? And then we're like, we've already spent all of our energy before we even get to the family situation itself.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm so glad you're naming that. That it's a friendly reminder, right? What do we have control over? Ourselves. We don't have control over how other people engage with us. And then the other thing too is um, we are not in control of someone else's, healing journey either. So just being having a little bit of mindfulness around you're in your own healing journey right now, and we want to honor and value that. And how can we establish some things that will continue to feel empowering as we recognize that in those dynamics with the family settings too.
Yes. Shifting to what's in our control and
That
hearing in that, right? Does that look like boundaries? Does that look like implementing some of our grounding techniques? What are
good.
things that are definitely within our response and control to meet that situation? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I'm so excited to kind of just step in a little bit into some things that our listeners and watchers can implement, and kind of pick and choose what feels best for them too. And I think always just giving ourselves options. And I think you're going to hear me say that a lot today, but just giving ourselves options. So what feels best, try on something, see how it feels. If it doesn't feel okay, that's okay. Here's something else that we can try. This whole journey is about allowing for fluidity and for messiness to happen. And I don't want us to beat ourselves up if we don't get it right the first time. Honestly, this is practice, and it's going to be an ongoing practice of just allowing ourselves to have a voice and to be okay with that voice too.
Yes. I love that you spoke to the fluidity around that. I feels like often when we're talking about boundaries or these interpersonal interactions, right? It's sort of this like, well, one and done. I set this boundary and now I don't have to revisit it ever again. I wish, right?
Yeah.
But in going negotiations, right? As our growth and healing shifts, our boundaries that we set last year, 6 months ago, might look different. And so I love that you're bringing that back to where's the fluidity and the opportunity to continue evolving and shifting as we work that muscle memory.
Yeah. 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 All right. So I think, biggest thing is just one with setting boundaries. I also think we hear a lot of this too, but being okay with disappointing people. And I know that feels way easier said than done, but just being okay with the fact that anytime that we try to implement any type of boundary, that we may disappoint someone, and that's okay. We're adults and people have an ability to get over that hurdle, and then we're all going to be fine. And if not, then that's something else that we can talk about in a different episode. But today it's just about recognizing that we can establish a boundary and that it's okay that we're going to disappoint others.
This feels so important. And I think this disappointment gets in the way of people setting boundaries, right? Well, I set this and someone had a response or reaction to it. So I'm going to backpedal, or, oh, okay, I won't enforce that. My toddler's coloring on the wall. My boundary is we live in a rental. No, thank you. Right? If you keep doing that, I'm going to take the crayons away. When I take the crayons away, there is a 100% chance we're going to have tears. We're going to have a tantrum. We're going to have big feelings about not getting to do this really fun thing of coloring on the wall. Titled to that response, I get to hold. We took the crayons away. And so getting comfortable with other people can have a response. That doesn't mean we have to shift our boundaries to accommodate their feelings about it.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I mean, it's sad that she doesn't get to crayon on the wall, but I do love that we have an option, right? We can continue to let our child crayon all over the wall if they want, or we can establish that boundary and just say like, okay, this does suck in the moment. I don't like seeing her sad, but this is also what we need to do, and that's okay. And I think that just speaks volumes to, other ways that we're going to engage in other dynamics where we don't have to feel forced to stay in a situation, that we can ultimately have a way of navigating out of that situation, whether it's, okay, so what feels best for us in this moment? What does it feel like we need to do? And I think that just comes from being able to ask ourselves in this inner dialogue around, what do I want right now? What does it feel best for me to do? Do I want to be in a situation? Do I want to say something? Or do I want to completely remove myself from the situation as well? Or do I want to ask someone to give me something back?
And I think where that decisions can come from, sort of step one is, what is my value or belief system around this interaction? What type of relationship interaction feels possible? Getting really clear on sort of what is the bare minimum for a successful or neutral interaction with this person. We have some clarity. What feels realistic given where we are, where they are? We do within those parameters. And I think what you're speaking to is, we've spent some time identifying what's important to us, and it feels so much easier to uphold something that we know aligns with our value system if we're really clear on that, than me trying to say, Bernice, I hate when you ask me about going to Trader Joe's, right? The parking lot's insane. Stop asking me. And then I'm trying to navigate that. How do I get to say what's important to me about this conversation and this interaction? And then I can start putting some things in place that I can do from there.
Yes. You're hitting such an important topic too, of value, right? Understanding what feels really important for us and what is it that we want to honor for ourselves in establishing that boundary. Is it just what level of comfort is important to us, right? And I think the value system is key when understanding what is it that we want, what is it that we value in this relationship with my sibling, with my friend, with my mom, with my cousin, whomever it is. But just having a little bit of understanding of what that value is that we are, again, upholding within that relationship dynamic too. And what do we want to sustain and just kind of continue to have that relationship dynamic with too. There's some components that feel really important about that relationship. So it's how do we continue to have that without it fully rupturing too? And so that's going to come from us voicing how we want to engage, how we want to be present in that relationship. And that just comes from acknowledging what it is that we want too.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, because it does feel important to acknowledge there may be some relationships where even setting boundaries isn't safe or doesn't feel like an option. And trusting yourself to discern where are the relationships that it feels worth it to navigate some of these things. Where do we know there maybe isn't some wiggle room, and being able to make some decisions regarding safety there as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And with that too, maybe we have some family members that we do feel really safe with, and how we can use them and utilize them as our kind of safety net, our kind of frame of reference of like, if we're in a family dynamic and I'm making eye contact with you, I'm like, where's Alexandra? Oh, I see you. Come help me.
Time signal. I love that you're bringing this up because it feels like so many clients, have really supportive partners or friends or people who are locked in with them around some of these dynamics, and we're underutilizing them. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, great. If your partner is able to identify, wow, Bernice, when you're around your family, I notice that you really revert into this thing, or it's hard for you to advocate for yourself in these ways. Great. They're an awesome person that we can utilize to say, I know when this conversation starts or this topic shifts happen or this family member shows up, I might have a reaction. Can you keep an eye and help me in that moment? Encourage me to step away. Maybe we go for a walk. Maybe we excuse ourselves to get more snacks, right? Or have someone else provide either physical support or emotional support in that moment. Boundaries don't have to be things that we do alone, and we can bring in as much team effort and support as we can to help us stay aligned with our value system in that moment.
Yes, yes. I love that. We don't have to do this alone if we don't have to, right? If there's someone again that we can rely as that additional support, yes, let's utilize them. I don't want anyone to feel like they can't do it if they don't have, I'm sorry, that they can do it if they have someone there that they can rely on. So yeah, I love that.
I think there's another piece that you're speaking to in this of sort of pre-planning with a partner or a friend or that support system. And I think there's a piece around boundaries or communicating with others that we can also do in advance ahead of time, where we can sort of forecast or lay the groundwork, right? I've been going on this healing journey. These are some of the things that I'm working on. This is what I'm asking for or needing when I come home or when we go to this event. Plan that ahead of time so people can have that in their minds. And then when we get into the moment, we've already laid the foundation for that boundary to be upheld.
I
Always have to be in the moment.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that also helps. I love that you're mentioning that, because I think it helps with, relieving some of that pressure of like, oh, here goes my time. I need to say something, right? And that panic that really sets in, or that gets to be reduced a bit if we have a conversation beforehand of like, these are some of the things that I'm just going to be doing for myself. It, again, it's just what I need to do for myself. And I think just being able to communicate that and saying it out loud and hearing yourself say it out loud feels good, because then when it actually happens in that moment, we make this connection of like, oh, I get to take care of myself and this feels good, or it feels a bit uncomfortable, but I'm okay with this level of discomfort.
Oh, I love that you said that, right? That it takes the pressure off having to respond in the moment, having to respond the right way, maybe the way we rehearsed. It takes the pressure off of needing it to look a certain way when we've set the groundwork of expectations.
Yeah, 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 exactly. The other thing that like is coming to mind too, just with boundaries in general, is um having this awareness of when we establish a boundary or when we don't establish a boundary, we feel this level of discomfort being in something that just feels like, this feels really uncomfortable and not, the conversation that I don't really particularly like, or I feel like I'm being forced to do something and I really want to take a break. My back is really hurting, or I have a really bad headache, or I'm just not comfortable here anymore. Whatever that is, that we're recognizing something and we're kind of forced to stay in that situation. And then we have this level of discomfort in establishing that boundary and saying, okay, I'm going to retreat for a minute, whatever it is. But both of them are really highlighting this level of discomfort. And we can choose to not honor how we feel, or we can choose to honor how we feel. They're both still really uncomfortable and still bring some level of discomfort, but at least we get to take care of ourselves here in this situation and lean into this practice that we were talking about earlier, that we can give ourselves options and we can continue to practice just, again, this challenging, difficult thing that we get to do for ourselves.
Yes, I love keyword options, but I
Yeah.
love you brought that up because I think there's this sense that if I set a boundary, I'm ruffling the status quo. That's going to be more difficult than if I just sit here in these same
And
patterns and cycles that cause me distress. And I love that you're highlighting there's discomfort in both options. Staying in the status quo feels sort of discomfort around danger, and sitting in the discomfort of setting a boundary feels like we're moving closer to safety. Both are uncomfortable, but one feels like it's upholding that idea of that compass of safety and getting us closer to our needs in that moment.
yeah, yeah. But options. Options is the key word for today. Give your options, please. Yeah, that is, oh my goodness.
Something that we talked about a little bit earlier, Bernice, that I think you speak really well to is we find ourselves in a situation, maybe the boundary can't be upheld or things are sort of going off the rails. We're finding ourselves feeling dysregulated. What are some things that people can do in those moments to stay grounded, to find retreat either internally or in the situation to create a bit of safety? If it's just not an opportune time to sort of stick in our boundary, if the situation requires something different.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. I like to kind of separate it into two different groups, meaning if our trigger response or just our response that we're noticing, our physical response and our emotional response in that moment feels really big, like that we're really heavily activated, then it may not be the most opportune time to really take care of our emotions and like assess what's happening for us. So sometimes I like to just really give the permission of, let me just distract, let me just do something completely like in the moment to help pull my mind somewhere else. And distracting can be anything really. It can just be like, oh, look at that wall. Or if there's an animal around that you can go pet, or you can potentially take on a walk, or being able to just completely shift your attention to something else for a moment. Um, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I love that, right? I feel like we can find ourselves sort of stuck in a conversation. It's escalating. Maybe we missed some of those exits for trying to like remove ourselves. So I love what you're saying of, okay, how can I create some safety here? Whether that's attuning to something sensory in the room. Is there a pet, a child, something that everyone's attention can sort of shift to that's maybe less divisive, less threatening? Can we step out and do some dishes and find a moment to sort of ground ourselves in that repetitive motion, taking a bathroom break, right? And running some cold water under our hands, sticking our head in the freezer. Um, just some ways to stay present until it feels maybe safer or less high stakes to sort of process what's been happening and attend to our emotions in a safer way.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I love the little snippet that you mentioned around, it feels like we're like on a highway, like going 100 miles an hour to some extent. And that's kind of how I feel sometimes. Like we get to like hard exit sometimes when we're noticing a bit of that intensity of our mind kind of going 100 miles an hour. And sometimes we're going to miss the exit, and that's okay. And then we can utilize, if we have the capacity to be able to slow down in that moment and be like, okay, what do I want to do to actually exit this, this mental freeway of just 1,000 miles an hour thought process of like, do this, don't do that, or whatever it may be, and incorporating some of these techniques that we're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Slowing down a little bit, right? If we're going 100, as to your point, we're going to miss some of those opportunities for an exit, for a rest stop. If we can get ourselves to slow down just a little bit, we can start seeing, okay, 2 miles till the next rest stop. I can hold out for 2 miles, right? Or 2 more minutes in this conversation, and then I can excuse myself, or, my partner and I can give each other the sign, or, whatever we worked out. There's an opportunity to retreat a little bit until it feels safer to regroup and try again.
Yeah. Yes. Another keyword, opportunity. Everything is an opportunity to mold and reshape things the way that we want them for ourselves too, and how we want to take care of ourselves in that moment as well. So yeah, I love that reminder of just opportunity. as much as giving ourselves an option. So nothing has to be so black and white. Again, fluidity and movement around what it is that we're doing in those moments, and like really challenging situations too.
Yeah, and I love that you honed in on that idea of opportunity, right? I think we talked about this earlier, right? Maybe I missed an opportunity at lunch to interject and respond in a way that I
Mhm.
wanted to. Okay, dinner's coming up. I have another opportunity perhaps to try again or advocate for myself in a different way. That we can keep doing that as many times as is necessary.
Mhm.
We talked about at the beginning that boundaries and these interpersonal interactions are ongoing and fluid and are constantly shifting and pivoting as our needs and values change.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I love that so much.
I think all of that, Bernice, too, sort of points to this idea that like we don't just set boundaries once and get to like walk away and call it a day. We're evolving, our own boundaries change and shift. Other people's responses to our boundaries are going to constantly be in motion. And so I think as much as we can view it as options and opportunities, that sounds that we sort of get to implore that like growth mindset, right? It's not just I learned this and now I'm done, but it's going to look different in different situations. And they're all opportunities to keep practicing something that's really hard.
Yes, exactly. And right, it's a practice and just being a reminder that we get to utilize our voice however it is that we want. Even if that means that we don't want to engage too. It doesn't setting a boundary sometimes is just kind of saying, I don't want to say anything here. And that is just when we remove ourselves, or it can be, do I want to use my voice? And my voice right now is just to actually verbalize, I don't feel comfortable with this. I'm going to go lay down for a bit, or just I'm not okay talking about this too. And I think, yeah, just being cognizant of what it is that we do have control over.
Yes. Well said.
Well, yeah.
Opportunities and what do we have control over?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I feel like we gave our listeners so many different things to like try and implement, and just friendly reminders too of things that they can do for themselves, of like how to retreat, how to take care of themselves, establishing the boundaries. It's not easy, but it is, we are capable of doing it. And I think that's another thing is we are capable. It's just, do we want to do it or
And to your point, giving yourselves a lot of grace. If we are navigating relationships where there haven't been healthy or productive boundaries, this is going to be a really big learning curve for everyone involved. And I think allowing that to be sort of messy, not getting it right sometimes,
I love.
dating, it's ongoing. And I think taking the pressure off of it needing to look a certain way. And as long as we're continuing to think about and stay grounded to what's important to us in our journey, it feels like we can't do the wrong thing when it comes to boundaries because we'll be connecting with what's important, what's valuable to ourselves.
Yep, exactly. Yep. I love it. I love everything that you just said. All right. Well, I had such a wonderful time with you today, and I look forward to hopefully doing way more episodes with you.
Always a pleasure, Bernice.
All right. Well, thanks again for everyone joining us. If you are looking for one-on-one support or would like to stay connected, please reach us at bettermindcenter.com or at Christy's Instagram at better.with.christy, or subscribe to our channel to watch other videos. The links are also down below. Until next time, bye. Bye.